But since we're talking about wine, or I'm introducing the topic and I'm intending to talk about wine, let me tell you a little a story. In the Middle Ages, in Europe, there was a lot of economic growth and development, and countries around Germany and France and Spain and Italy decided that they needed revenue in order to fund their growth and the services for their population. And the way that they went about gathering that additional revenue was this wonderful concept called taxation. Now, taxation had been around for a long time. Of course, the Romans were very familiar with taxation. Taxation was really important to these folks. And some of the things that they taxed were the popular items that were being moved around from country to country. Specifically this kind of stuff, in different colors, the red color and the white color. And as the transportation of wine went across borders, tax would be assessed based on the volume of that wine. And the challenge was, the amount of tax they would have to spend was a lot, and also transporting vast quantities of wine was a labor-intensive activity. Think, they're dealing with horses, they're dealing with human labor. So it's expensive, it's time-consuming, it kind of wears on the joints after a while, certainly if you're getting a little aged, and they have to pay a lot of tax. So somewhere along that process, somebody came up with the bright idea that if you heat this stuff to almost to the point of boiling, actually just to the point of boiling, the water vapor will release itself, and the alcohol will release itself, and you can separate the two things off. And you can take the water and throw it away because that's a very low price commodity, and you can keep the residual value and put it into smaller barrels. It's lighter, it's easier to transport. You can take it across borders, and less tax would be assessed. And of course, then when you get to your destination, you add the water back and you reconstitute this beautiful drink. And then surely, somewhere along that process, maybe a gentleman or a young lady pulling a team of horses must have realized it was really hot and decided they needed to refresh themselves, and perhaps tapped into one of these barrels and poured out some of the liquid and took a taste of it, and well, it was wonderful. It was this concentrated material that they thought was wonderful, and thus was born brandy. That's the origin of brandy. That's where it came from. It was a challenge, a problem, an opportunity to be solved that wound up turning out this wonderful nectar. Let's jump forward to the 1950s, in the middle of the Cold War, and down in predominantly the southern states of the United States, there were a large number of Titan missiles sitting in chambers underground, ready to be fired off at a moment's notice. I visited one of these, actually one after one of the Grace Hopper events in Arizona, down in Tucson a few years ago. Wonderfully reconstructed. The missile, SON warhead and fuel sits in its original bunker. You can go around and you can visit the control room, which is actually built on springs. So if there was ever a nuclear attack, a hit very close to it, the whole room would just bounce. The staff inside would be safe. And even if the top of the ground was decimated, or even 100%, because decimated is only 10%, if it was completely wiped out, then they could run up additional antenna, excuse me, and make contact with the rest of the world. So all these Titan missiles are standing or sitting in these silos, waiting to be fired. And Titan missiles are made out of steel, and steel is a wonderful element for strength and durability and rigidity and a whole bunch of other positive attributes that are useful for making nuclear missiles. The challenge with steel, and even in the desert, is steel is apt to rust. And a rusted nuclear missile, I would assert, is probably not the most valuable or even desirable thing to have around. Kind of dangerous. You don't want nuclear missiles kind of exploding randomly based on structural failure. So the US government, the Navy, put out a request and started work with a company in San Diego to come up with something to protect these nuclear missiles, something to protect the steel to stop it rusting, and then thereby maintain the integrity of these vehicles and their payload. And this company down in San Diego worked on lots and lots of different compounds that could be spread over the side of the missile and be used to protect it. And after 40 attempts, they finally came up with a compound that would be valuable and the military could use. And they named this thing water displacement compound, so WD-40, right? That's where WD-40 comes from. Now, the story, of course, doesn't finish there. The CEO of the company, being a bright fellow and realizing that a lot of his staff were taking portions of this highly secret, highly valuable material home to go and lubricate doors and other sort of jammed items. Excuse me. Realized what a tremendously valuable thing this was. So although the military was a good deal for them, and it built up their business, of course they went on to make hundreds of millions of dollars more with WD-40, selling it around the world. And they've never patented that compound. Because if they did, of course, it would be very easy for other people to replicate or maybe modify. So, much like McDonald's secret sauce, it's always been kept very secret. Although, of course, most people generally know what's in it. But that's the origin of WD-40. So, so what? why am I telling all of these stories? I find it fascinating to see how people have solved problems that are very close to themselves, their own immediate needs, and have then gone on to help out other folks, within their community, within the world. That this notion of scratching your own itch, of being your own customer, and then going out and solving problems for the rest of the world is I find very interesting and also very important. It's led to some tremendous innovations. Brandy, of course, not being the least of those. So as Maria said, I've been in the website application platform group at Amazon for 6 3/4 years, and it's been an absolutely fun, fantastic job. I run the infrastructure that runs all of the Amazon sites, plus My Habit and Audible and Shopbop and Zappos and lots of other sites around the world. I also have a cold as well, so excuse the coughing. And it's been such a fun, fantastic job. And I just recently accepted a new position to go and run a new platform organization to build a common platform on which all of the stores and the shopping experience for our digital products will exist. So applications, games, video, music, books, periodicals, other written material. I have the chance to build out a platform in Amazon that's going to take care of, that would be the foundation for all of those stores. Because all of those stores that exist today have all grown up very, very rapidly. I mean, Amazon is very much a large sort of umbrella company with lots of very individual entrepreneurial businesses that lie within it. And they've all moved forward very, very fast. And now's the time to kind of take a pause, well, not so much a business pause, but take a pause in terms of our technology and normalize and create a common infrastructure on which all of these stores and the ones to come beyond it can be built. So it's almost a little bit like stepping back in time 6.5 years. Some of the same problems that I've solved over the last few years with a tremendously adept and an expert team. But it feels like stepping back and kind of looking at some of those same issues again. And hopefully from the mistakes I made over the last few years and the successes I've had and the things that I've learned, I can go on and do this hopefully faster next time. And also learn a whole bunch of things for the future. So, but building out that platform, or building out any sort of platforms, is kind of important to the slide not working, because I have something else running. Now let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, I can always go back to the manual method. Yeah, I think I'll go back to the manual method. There we go about that. All right. Did that change? No. Oh dear. James. Yeah. Tell me. Yeah, now it changed, right? I saw the little hourglass change to something. James, that was just wholly designed to just freak you out, dude. That's okay. Don't worry about that. It's Windows. What can I say? Sorry, Maria. So platforms are a key and very fundamental part of what I do at Amazon, and I've done it at many, many other companies. The challenge with platforms and frameworks is the danger that if you're vending these solutions to other teams or customers, you become a negative gatekeeper. You know, what do gatekeepers do? They collect tolls, they're slow at raising the barrier, they get in your way. And that's a hindrance, that's a delay to business. And even the best meaning gatekeepers, doesn't matter how efficient or how organized they are, can be a problem. And the architecture that we use with inside Amazon is what they call a service-oriented architecture. So it's a collection of independent services with a defined interface that provide a function. So when you're on the Amazon website and you put something into a cart, that cart process, that checkout process is one service. When you pay, when you put in a credit card, that's a payment service. When you're writing a review, that's a review service. When you're reading discussion forums, when you're looking at pictures, these are all independent services that talk to each other in combinations and permutations that change on a very surprisingly frequent basis. So there's a lot going on. And as we want to get into new countries or as we want to launch new categories, I learned a few days ago, Amazon sells loose gemstones. Anybody know that? I didn't know that. I work for the company. There you go. Well, of course, yeah, you'd know that, of course. And they sell very attractive do-rags as well. But when you want to get into new countries, when you want to open up new categories, get into new lines of business, if you have to come to a team and say, I need you to change your software in a certain way, I need you to make it more extensible or extend its API, its interface. These are all challenging things, and they slow down the rate of innovation. They slow down the rate of business change, and that's a problem. So we're all encouraged and supported to make each of these things as self-service as we can possibly make them, and that's terribly important for the growth of our business. And you know, there are other companies in history that we look at that have been gatekeepers in one way or the other. So if you cast your minds back, for those of you old enough to do so, that when cable companies, you know, the likes of Comcast and CenturyLink, started providing home internet capabilities, one of the things they did to maximize their revenue is that they wanted to lock you into a cable modem. So you plugged in your laptop or your more likely desktop, and it identified the MAC address, something that was unique to that piece of hardware. And it would lock you in. It wouldn't let you, you know, take the cable out and plug it somewhere else. They wanted to sell you a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth link. Now that generally wasn't a problem. You know, you think back, you know, mid-90s. It's not that long ago, but it wasn't such a big problem because computers are expensive and people only had, you know, maybe one. But then they got cheaper, and you had two or you had three. And this need to go and buy additional connections at very expensive, relatively expensive rates was a problem. And there was a company down in Southern California, down in actually just around Irvine, Orange County. Two brothers, sorry, a brother and a husband and a wife. Yes, I know, two brothers. That's okay. This is California. Anyway, a husband and a wife that, you know, didn't like this. You know, they saw this as a problem, and they knew they were technologists. They knew that they could go to people like Cisco and spend $5,000 and buy a router. And plug the one line coming in from the cable company, and they could do MAC address spoofing and get all their machines working. But that wasn't going to work for the average consumer. So what they invented was a very, very low-cost router. The company's name is Linksys, subsequently acquired by Cisco. But Linksys came up with a very, very inexpensive home router that would remove this barrier to adoption. Of course, the cable companies didn't like it. There were various lawsuits, and they all got kind of sorted out eventually. Because I think a lot of the cable companies realized they could see the writing on the wall, and eventually their arms were twisted in the right direction. So these very inexpensive routers came out, but they were done to solve a problem that people didn't want to pay for multiple points of connection. And then the other challenge with dealing with routers is, okay, you've got a router in place talking to a bunch of machines. You've got cables everywhere. That's nonsense. So what was happening at the same time was these little chips were coming out that enabled Wi-Fi. You could talk over wireless networks within your house or within your business, just a short distance, and were able to send these signals. So they started building Wi-Fi capability into their routers. It wasn't that long ago. It was mid-90s. You know, it's less than 20 years ago that this stuff was all being invented to solve specific problems, to meet the needs of the individuals that were taking care of, that were being inhibited from doing what they wanted. They invented something for themselves predominantly, but then they realized there'd be a market. They could go and extend much beyond that. So very much from the Amazon perspective, we want to be able to take a lot of this ethos and apply it internally. We don't want to be getting in the way of our own staff. We want to have unconstrained business growth. We want to be able to see that there's a business opportunity, see that there's a problem in the world, and then go do something about it, and do it very, very fast. And sometimes we fail spectacularly, and sometimes we're successful quite spectacularly. But it doesn't matter. Fail fast, fail early, fail often. These are all part of the leadership principles that we embody on a very regular basis. So our approach is very much four things. Number one is very easy, is solve our own problems. We're constantly looking for inhibitors to business growth, ways that mechanisms that are preventing us from reaching our customers. That's incredibly important. But once we solve our own problems, then we want to make it easy for our own people to use these solutions, and also for folks outside the company. So that's, number three. We want to find others with the same itch that are perhaps outside of Amazon and scratch their itches as well. So a good example is fulfillment centers, our warehouses that we use for receiving inventory, picking it, packaging it, and then sending you out the boxes that you receive, hopefully on a regular basis. Who has Prime membership at Amazon? Good, thank you. Who doesn't? Why?
My student account ran out.
That's lame, dude. Just put the money down. So we have this notion internally. We have this notion internally called primnesia, and it's the act of getting home and finding a box on your doorstep, and you've forgotten what's inside it because you order so much from Amazon. So we thank you, and my daughter's education fund thanks you as well, right? So primnesia is an interesting thing. So we have these warehouses, and we're building them at just a ridiculous rate around the world to manage ever-increasing volume. So if you look at January, February, March, right the way throughout the year, we've got a kind of steady growth in terms of unit sales of our business. Then we get to November. Oh, there's little spikes. There's little spikes like back to school, things like Mother's Day and Father's Day less for some reason. I don't quite understand that one. Mother's Day is a big blip. Back to school is a big one, and of course Valentine's Day is a big one. And by the way, we can look at the gender of people shopping, and all the women buy plenty of time ahead of Valentine's Day, and the men buy 24 hours ahead of time and play rush shipping. We thank you for that as well. But the business grows, and then November it stops and tilts like this and just goes through the roof. It goes up about 10x. Last year we did about, and I'm guessing, about $18 billion in about 6 weeks. Which, from a software perspective, because I'm running the systems that are running the websites, fine, that's a scalability issue, and we'll come back to that one. That's interesting in a few minutes' time. But imagine you're in a warehouse, and you've got to pick and pack and ship $18 billion worth of items that are on average $5 or $6 a piece. Okay, if you're buying a camera, maybe it's $200, $300. But most of the items are in the the $20 to $30, and you've got to ship $18 billion worth of that. It's just mind blowing the amount of intensity of effort that goes into these fulfillment centers. But during the year, we're building these centers out to accommodate that space that we need during the end of the year. But then we have a problem. We have what the Japanese call muda. We have waste. We have all of this space that's sitting around not doing anything. So somebody had the bright idea that, well, why don't we sell this waste or make this waste available in a productive manner to our customers or our sellers, people that sell their items on Amazon. So take, for example, you're running a business, and you have several thousand copies, and I have no idea why you would do this, but several thousand copies of the picture dogs playing poker, okay? I don't think Maria's ever painted one of these versions, and if she's any sense, never will. But imagine you've got copies of dogs playing poker. And you take 3 or 4 orders a day, you wander out to your garage at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you roll up a few of these, stick them in a cardboard tube, label them, and then the post office comes by and picks them up and you're good to go. But just imagine one day that you get on the top of Reddit or the top of the Huffington Post, that dogs playing poker is like the thing in the world. And instead of taking 2 or 3 orders that day, you take 20,000. What are you going to do? well, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You've committed some reasonable time to deliver to your customers. You can't hire people fast enough. You can't get the materials. You can't ship fast enough. You're effectively out of business. It's a huge step function to be able to handle that growth in business. And even if it's not just 2 or 3, it's 20 or 30, it's still a big change in that business. You've got to go and hire some help. You've maybe got to get a bigger garage to store these things. You've got to get more cardboard tubes. So the philosophy that we had was take those pallets of dogs playing poker, ship them into an Amazon fulfillment center, take up that muda, take up that waste. And then when an order is placed, we'll pick it, pack it, and ship it cheaper than you can possibly do so. Because you're paying retail for shipping into those cardboard tubes, we're paying cents on the dollar for shipping those cardboard tubes just because of the volume that we're able to drive in terms of business with the shippers, with the vendors. So we go from waste to now being productive use of it. And on a retail business that has pretty razor-thin margins, reducing waste is incredibly important. So we're solving a problem for ourselves. How do we get rid of this waste? Both in our fulfillment centers, we also focus on how do we reduce the amount of air that we ship in our boxes. I remember ordering a golf club years ago, and it came in a box about yay big and about this high, and it was diagonally positioned. And most of the box was air. We're paying for shipping air. Shipping is not generally done based on the weight at that volume. It's done based on the volume. So for this small item, we're shipping this ton of air. So we look very closely at how much air we're shipping, and we're doing everything we possibly can to minimize that. It's a problem that we have, but of course, if we can come up with those solutions and then pass them on to our sellers, then that's a great value to them as well. So, principle behind Amazon is very simple: price, selection, and convenience. Lowest possible price, greatest selection on the planet. Because we don't have brick and mortar stores, we can have our inventory in very low-cost places around the world, and then great selection. And it's that business model that's lasted us tremendously well ever since Jeff founded the company in the 90s. And if you think about some of the things that we've gotten involved with, digital, streaming video, streaming music, but also our cloud infrastructure, it's all about lowest possible price, greatest selection of applications, of compute capacity, of storage capacity, and ease of doing business with us. You can slap down a credit card. That model has been very, very consistent no matter what lines of business we've been in. And I think there's an elegance that has allowed us to grow, and a high degree of hubris and humility as well in terms of focusing and understanding our customers, which is incredibly important. One thing about our customers is we obsess over our customers. If you've ever had instance of calling Amazon and raising a question or a concern or a problem with a shipment, I hope and I expect that you had a very good experience. And if you didn't, the line form's outside. I'd be happy to take care of your issue. And it's a dangerous thing. I'll go out and I'll present at colleges and universities and places all around the world, and I ask people who's had a problem with Amazon, and I get them to tell me the story. And 99 times out of 100, they've had a successful experience. And if they haven't, as an owner, as somebody that's charged to take care of that, I'll go and solve that problem, and I'll go and solve it in the half an hour after we've had the chance to have a presentation.
So ask.
So yeah, has anybody had a problem with any delivery, any payment, any issue with Amazon at all?
How about 6 p.m.? Does that count?
6 p.m. is Zappos. It's a little bit further apart. I don't have as much background and knowledge, so let's pass on that one for the time being. But I'll talk to you about it afterwards, because I know the VP of Engineering there, and we can take care of problems. So I will more than happily take you out. It's just for the point of illustration, I don't have as much background there. But anybody else? You had a problem with Amazon?
Well, first of all, we did a great job in resolving the problem.
You spoiled my punchline, come on.
I've noticed the on-track delivery as opposed to my guy in Brown, my
Yeah.
UPS guy showed me. Do you notice a little bit of a difference
Yep.
in experience? What share of your shipping is going out to like non-UPS?
A decreasing amount. Because, yeah, I mean, on-track was an experiment. So on-track, for anybody that doesn't know, so you've got Federal Express, you've got UPS. The uniform professional folks that we've used for years. On-track was an experiment to kind of crowdsource the shipping process. So independent contractors could sign up for on-track, they'd use their own vehicles, eventually they get a sign slapped on the side of it. And they could come in with a lower price. People signed on and worked when they wanted to, didn't work when they didn't want to. They could do it, jobs, job sharing, things like that. And it was an experiment to drive down cost. it drove down cost. It also drove down quality, and it also drove down customer satisfaction. And again, we obsess about our customers, so no, we've got to go back. Now, certain areas, because it also runs through a franchise model, certain areas are actually very well run. Certain areas are abysmally run. So we take away the bad, we keep the good. And maybe they have an opportunity to come back at some point in the future. I mean, we love and we support and encourage innovation. It's going to help, reduce the cost, and the cost then benefits our customers. But OnTrack has been an interesting experiment. And even though, we sell the stuff and it goes out and then it's in the hands of the delivery agent, it's still our reputation on the line. So we take messages and concerns about any of our delivery agents very, very seriously. But yeah, OnTrack it's been an interesting experiment and probably not one of the most successful ones that we've had.
I get my car parts in that crowdsourced way, I think.
Yeah.
Because I see all sorts of different people just dropping them off. But my Kindle on my iPhone, thank you. I mean, I use that instead of iPhone. Pretty much. A lot of it because of some of the facility sharing.
Right.
Well, why can't I get, why do I have to go to the Amazon app and then have it, buy it and then have it somehow download into the Kindle?
Yeah. And this is particularly on iPhone. On iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are lots of things that we love to do, that we want to provide to our customers. So for example, on the website, we list, if you're looking at a detailed page or a search, if you can't find what you're looking for, we'll point you off at third-party sites. We give customers the biggest selection, then it builds confidence, it builds trust, it increases reputation. So there are a lot of things that we'd love to be able to do, just as you've described. Why can't you download in one way, have it go straight into the app? There are limitations imposed on us by vendors of hardware and or software. They want to protect their market. Now we believe, Jeff made this beautiful quote at the last Kindle launch. Most companies make money when you buy their hardware. We make money when you use the hardware. We want to enable people to be continuous consumers and have that good long-term relationship. There are other companies that want to provide a very locked environment. I am neither saying that's good nor bad, it just is, it's information. But that's one of the things that we struggle with. Now separately, I may have a different opinion about that, but again, one of our key leadership principles, and certainly we go through PR training, is we never disparage our customers. I mean, these are people trying to do run a genuine business, trying to do the best for themselves, their families, their investors. They've got reasons for doing things that we may not thoroughly understand. Disparagement is not part of our repertoire. We want to go out and we want to win by doing the best things for our customers. But in that case, there are certain technological limitations that we'd love to blow apart that we don't quite have the opportunity to do. So with that's regrettable, but hopefully things will change in the future.
Good attitude.
But yeah, go ahead.
You know, the one-click
Mm-hmm.
checkout. Oh, that's really cool. It's brilliant. But the problem with it is, it should probably be like 2 clicks because.
2-click checkout.
Yeah.
It's like 6-minute abs. No, 5-minute abs.
Because it takes you, I have a whole bunch of credit cards saved, right? So it picks the one that I picked a long time ago, maybe. So when I do the 1-click, I get carried away, and all of a sudden I place my order, but that credit card, I don't want to use that credit card, so then I have to go back and edit the order. So if you could have a little drop down that says which credit card you want to use, and then you can choose
Well,
it.
then it wouldn't be 1-click; it'd be multiple click.
Well,
Right, but no, but this is a very interesting feedback. So the question was, for anybody who didn't hear it, is we have 1-click. You can click, bang. Your address is lined up, your credit card is lined up, everything's lined up, bang, click, and the thing's on its way. The other end of the spectrum is you've got to go through and pick the shipping address and pick the credit card and all of those individual steps. Shouldn't there be something kind of in the middle? Like maybe, click, are you sure? Or maybe here's confirmation. Here's a confirmation of the order. Do you really want to go ahead with that? We experiment with lots and lots of different combinations and permutations. We do a lot of A/B testing across all of our sites. And the mechanisms we have in place at the moment are what drives the greatest business opportunity for us and gets the best reaction from our customers. So basically what I'm saying is you're abnormal, okay? What you want is a little bit different. But no, because again, this is part of the issue of listening to the breadth of feedback, and that can drown out some very, very acute key messages. And the good thing is one of my peers in the organization runs the whole payments platform. That'll be the subject of next time we hoist a beer together, to ask him about that process. Now, the answer may be no. Okay, but at least we've heard and we've given a great degree of feedback. So it'll be interesting to see what comes about that. All right, last one, then I'll get back on topic.
I have a number of items that I order through Amazon where they'll send it to me every month or every quarter.
Subscribe and save.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that, but there's no paperwork in the box, so therefore, every month I went to them and said, did you make all these charges? And so now I have to go back into the account, we have to check and everything. It'd be really nice if you just, little thing that says $24.95 or whatever it is, because that's really kind of a problem.
Right. That's interesting. I've not heard that one before, but that's good. Yeah, that confirmation. Again, we want to drive costs down to the floor. Every one of those pieces of paper has a price. So we think, well, we're shipping you things on a regular basis. Of course you're intelligent enough to know this, right? But yeah, we're all busy. We forget. And I've got so many subscribe and save things coming that I can't keep track of it. But that's a very good point. All right, I'll certainly go and flag that one as well. So thank you for your feedback. And we can keep this going after the presentation. I mean, I love to hear from from customers. I mean, I'm a big customer, and I call customer service, and I identify myself as an employee. They never seem to quite understand that, but I always get dealt with and treated very fairly. It's a wonderful thing. So when Jeff did his infamous drive from New York City across to Seattle, he wrote his business plan, his model, his virtuous cycle, as we like to call it, on the back of a napkin. Whether it was a real napkin, I don't know. Maybe it was a piece of paper. But this is what has driven and guided the company and set the tone and the ethos for the business that we conduct on a for the last 20 or so years. So how do you grow a business? Everything starts and finishes with customer experience. That's so incredibly important to us. Poor customer experience, people will go elsewhere. The cost of changing when you're buying online is nothing. I mean, it's zero, absolute zero. So we have a great customer experience. We generate an awful lot of traffic. Many more people come and visit our site. And that's great because if the traffic goes up, not only are they buying things that are sold by Amazon, but third parties can sell their products on Amazon as well because they value that traffic. Lots of people coming. People setting up businesses, mom and pop operations, setting up a website. I've seen it happen so many times. They'll open up a website, everything's beautiful, all the descriptions, all the graphics, they've got their drop shipment, everything's ready to go. Nobody comes because nobody knows about it. And what the biggest challenge is, how do you drive traffic? How do you promote? How do you drive that engagement with the site? And then people can see the wonderful things that you've got. So if you're on the site, great customer experience, more traffic drives sellers. If you've got more sellers, then you've got more selection. Chris Anderson's The Long Tail. If you've not read that book or read the Wired article that it came from in, I think about 2003, a highly recommended reading. This long tail, if you go into a bookstore anywhere in the United States, it's about 100,000 titles. On Amazon, it's getting into the almost the tens of millions now. You can find just about anything. So that greater selection, the sellers flesh out the selection that we have. It's a much better customer experience. You can find what you want, and that then fuels the growth. And of course, this little spin-off at the top, lowest cost structure. As you get bigger, you've got greater negotiating leverage. Greater negotiating leverage to drive down the cost of the unit cost of the items that you purchase that we then resell. That's from the business or from the retail perspective, but think about it from the infrastructural perspective. That we have the opportunity to go out and buy servers and buildings and network capacity and content distribution network capacity much cheaper than anybody else because we're getting volume discount. Volume discount speaks volumes. And of course, then what we do is we plow all the money back into the business. If you read our finance reports every year, boy, do we plow every last red cent back into the business, which of course is a great customer experience. It's a very, very simple model, and I would encourage anybody, if you have a business, if you're thinking about setting up a business, certainly for the students, if you have that entrepreneurial itch, come up with a very simple model and use it to test yourself against on a constant basis. I've seen people spend a lot of money, max out credit cards because they didn't know whether or not they were successful. Have that exit strategy in your mind. That's really important. Not every company is going to be a multi-billion-dollar company. Maybe your strategy is to be acquired. or maybe it's just to make a healthy living for you, your family, a few partners. But be very clear on what that business opportunity is. So, excuse me, from a customer perspective, it's very simple. We have four types of customers. We have consumers. We're all consumers. Thank you very much. Buying hard goods, but also buying soft goods, buying digital products around the world, and we keep on entering new countries. And then sellers, people selling more and more of their items on Amazon. About 40% of our business, certainly in the US, is third-party sellers that round out and flesh out our product offering, again, to extend out that long tail. Now, this is where it gets interesting. There are a lot of people, and there are a bunch of them in this room, but I talk to them and I meet them wherever I go. Innovative, creative, enthusiastic, passionate people that just need a mechanism, a vehicle, a channel for getting their ideas realized and getting them out to a huge consumer base. And we love those people. Because they, again, with passion comes a lot of energy. With a lot of energy comes a lot of commerce, and we can all make money out of that. So, content creators. These days you don't have to go to a large publishing house and shop your book around and hope somebody's going to pick it up and then go through the slush pile if they've never heard of you before. Very small percentage of people that go to regular publishing houses ever get picked up. It's not necessary anymore. You can go to Amazon. You can go to other companies as well. Use the online publishing application, publish your book for the Kindle or for the Nook or for other e-reading devices, and you can be out in minutes. As long as you've got the content, you can actually be published within minutes. Then it's a marketing challenge. It's word of mouth, it's communication, it's getting the word out, it's friends and family, it's reviews, it's feedback. But we're at a great way that at very low cost to get your material out, get very good feedback on it, and then tune it and tweak it. I was talking over dinner about a series of stories that go under the banner Wool, W-O-O-L. If you've not heard of the Wool series, I guarantee within the next 6 months, everybody in this room with it's just been optioned for movies, for TV series, a whole bunch of other formats for delivery. And a fellow stepped up and wrote a short story and gave it away for free on Kindle. And people downloaded it, friends and family first, and they provided the review feedback, and it just became a phenomenon. It's in the science fiction category, which is not a big seller not a big money maker for the big publishing houses. And it's not great literature, but it's a really good story. It's great storytelling. There's interesting characters and fun and exciting things happen to them. There's no unicorns, sadly, but apart from that, it's a very, very exciting story, and it's short stories, so there's a cliffhanger at the end of each one. It goes back to the periodicals and magazines and journals from the late 1800s. All the Sherlock Holmes stories were originally put out in a format of a serial format. And so many other successful stories, Jules Verne, other things that now we've lived on to become tremendous literature, were released chapter by chapter by chapter. And that's why when you read those stories now in book form, they're very exciting because there's a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter. It's because you had to have the cliffhanger to get people to buy the next instance of it. So the whole publishing process has changed, and allowing people to unleash their creativity in new ways, cheaper ways, faster ways, and more immediate ways to get their feedback from their customers. And then developers. Software developers have needs. They want to be able to use the best tools. They want to use the cheapest tools. They want to be able to be as effective as they possibly can. And they want to be able to reduce their cost. Once upon a time, if you were setting up a new business, a new web-based business, you go to a VC, and they'd have to give you $10, $15, $20 million of money to go and buy a data center, to fill it up with servers, with racks, with cooling equipment, with electricity. It's a massive capital infrastructure. And then if you failed, it was all wiped out, and they'd sell it for a dime on the dollar, or hopefully somebody else would pick it up. But it was a tremendous barrier to entry. Well, now you can go to any one of a large number of cloud vendors and rent time very, very inexpensively that scales commensurate with the growth of your business. If you're unsuccessful, you're not going to have to pay the money. If you're wildly successful, sure, you're paying the money. Hopefully you've got a revenue stream coming in to pay for that growth, or you've got some deep pockets to come along the way. And I want to look just at one quick example in terms of Amazon developers and how that process works. Effectively an itch that Amazon had itself, rather like the fulfillment centers, and how we went about identifying it and scratching ourselves to the benefit of a lot of our customers. So if you look at let's set the stage and talk a little bit about fleet scaling. Was anybody here when I did a talk a few weeks ago after the career afternoon? Was anybody there that's in this session? Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions and I want you guys not to say a word. Okay, because you know the answers. Everybody else will know the answers as well. That's not a problem. So, running Amazon.com, which serves the United States, we have Amazon.ca for Canada and CN for China and JP and FR and these other countries. But just in the US, the Amazon fleet of hardware, consider it like a fleet of ships. We have a fleet of hardware, tens of thousands of servers that live in our data centers out in Virginia, run the Amazon retail website. And they're very expensive, to say the least. But one good thing that we have got going for ourselves is the way in which we acquire these servers is governed by the amount of traffic that we're going to receive. So you typing in www.amazon.com, enter, generates one connection, one piece of traffic to us. And then we're going to render a page, and we're going to send it back to you, and you're going to interact with that page, and the conversation's going to go on. Each hit is a unit of work, is a unit of traffic. So that's all the traffic is, this magical word traffic. And the good thing is, traffic is highly, highly predictable, except when it isn't. Okay? And I'll give you an example of that. So this is what an average week looks like at Amazon. The vertical axis has been obfuscated to hide the innocent, but this is what our traffic pattern looks like during the week. You see Monday's a little bit higher than the rest of the week. The supposition there is that folks will go and look at brick and mortar stores, they'll decide what they want, then they want to buy it cheaper, they'll come and buy it when they get in the office on Monday. And you see each day in the US has a double spike. The first spike is around about noon, and the second spike is early evening after people have finished dinner. Very, very predictable. The pattern looks like this week after week after week after boring week. It looks just the same, which is great, because I can predict then how much traffic is going to be coming in, and I can predict how much capacity of hardware that I need to be able to serve that traffic. And it's interesting culturally, and this is a whole way other discussion. Country by country, that pattern is very different. Still very predictable, but the time when people have dinner in Germany versus France versus Japan, incredibly different. At one point, we used to see Japan would have a massive spike at 11 o'clock at night. What the heck was going on? It turned out the cost of connecting to internet services in Japan at 11 o'clock at night dropped dramatically. That's when everybody logged on. It's like, well, if we could get them to shop longer by perhaps subsidizing the cost of their internet access. But those data give you the opportunity to ask those sort of interesting questions. So what we do is we hold a peak capacity. So there's different axes on there, but basically that's the traffic, the wavy line. The peak capacity held is enough compute cycles, enough CPU capacity to be able to serve that traffic. Now, there's an interesting problem associated with that. What's the problem with this model? I've got all night.
Christmas.
Christmas is a problem, but just on a weekly basis, what's the problem you see straight away? You are indeed wasting an awful lot of capacity. It's difficult to see the blue and blue shading on here, but about 39%, the capacity that sits above the line is wasted. And the reason that we have this buffer between the predicted traffic and the capacity we hold is because of unexpected events. Sometimes we get hit by DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks. There's the bad guys that want to just pound us with lots of traffic, see whether they can take us down. And we have to repel them as best we can. But we never have to destroy them or put them out of business. All we have to do is be better than the next guy. They'll get bored with us eventually and they'll go away and attack somebody else. And we get DDoS attacks all the time. They never cease. But we have very interesting mechanisms for fending those off. The other reason we have so much buffer is the Oprah effect. Oprah gets on the TV and says, hey, everybody should buy 50 Shades of Grey. Bang, 5 million women come and shop. All at the same time. And that generates a very interesting spike. So we have to have enough capacity to be able to lead that. Now, even if we go above the capacity that we've held, we can throttle. And from time to time, you may come to the site and the page doesn't load. You think, well, it's your machine or you didn't hit the right button, you just hit it again. No, we throttled you. because Oprah had been on TV 5 minutes before, sending 5 million women to the site to be able to go buy 50 Shades of Grey. So, but you know, you only get throttled one time out of 100. Nobody ever notices. It's never a big issue. So we've got lots of remediation mechanisms we can put in place. All right, so who said Christmas? This is the traffic pattern in November. So for the vast majority of November, it grows a little bit. When you get to Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and Cyber Monday, by the way, Cyber Monday was a complete fiction made up by newspapers and magazines. It's now become a reality. Cyber Monday was a little bit of a peak. Now it's a huge peak. But Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the day before Super Saver shipping ends is always a big peak. That's, again, 95% men shopping at the last possible minute. There's some very interesting patterns of behavior that we can glean. But yeah, when you look at that and the pattern that we have to deal with, you know, we scale our capacity in a couple of steps. So we hold a lower amount of capacity earlier on in the month. We have to do this big step function, because what we're doing is we're buying, that represents us buying 50,000 servers and installing them in a new data center and bringing them online. And you can think, I mean, think of the cost. I mean, we're talking tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to do that. That then gives us the capacity to get through the holidays. And of course, January, the peak comes down. It exits or enters the new year higher than the previous year because we've acquired a bunch of new customers. So it comes down quite significantly and then builds up to the next holidays. And you know, if you look at the charts year over year, it's kind of that, and that, and that, and it just keeps on going up. But you know, once we drop back down again, you've got all that wasted capacity. So the numbers get much, much worse here. 76% versus 24% of held capacity that's just sitting around wasting money. And that's not good. So what was the itch? How do we eradicate that waste? How do we efficiently manage all of our hardware capacity? And then also, how do we manage that unexpected demand, the Oprah effect, the DDoS attack, people doing merchandising programs that want to sell a lot more through the site? How do we be able to react immediately to all of that? This is a serious question. How do we manage all of that? What do you do?
Rent your server to me part-time.
Rent your server to you part-time. So all of that wasted space, rather than it just sitting around idle, give it across to you. What else? What other mechanisms exist?
Brainwashing.
Brainwashing?
Yeah, you just brainwash your customers to order in a more...
That's right. So changing the behavior of our customers. Or the other idea was kind of the upside down world. You know, people are awake in the United States during the day, asleep in India, and then they flip-flop across. So maybe if you've got some core capacity that's busy during the day in the US, not so much in India, and you flip it across. The challenge there is latency. Wherever you have your data center, no matter the speed of light, you're bouncing through all of these routers, the sons of the Linksys stuff that we talked about a little earlier on. And they really cut down the performance. So doing batch operations remotely, yes. Doing real-time operations remotely, no, because it really gets slow and nasty. So yeah, the answer is right. We come.
Make a cultural comment based on 50 years ago when I was working for AT&T. The overload we worried about was Mother's Day overload on the network and Christmas.
Right. Everybody wants to pick up the phone and call their mom.
Peak
Yeah.
performance that we strive to handle. That was the test of the network.
Well, we had a similar thing about a year and a half ago. Somebody called a SEV1 inside our company. A SEV1 is a site is down, and that's the worst possible event you can have. A phone call starts up. There's usually about 50 people that call on from lots of different teams. It's very regimented, very well organized. And it was Germany. Germany, the order rate had dropped by about 50 or 60%, within seconds. And we checked out our ordering pipeline, and we checked out the site rendering, we checked out network, we checked everything. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And then somebody from Germany gets on the phone and says, Germany's playing, I can't do the accent, Germany's playing England in the World Cup. So as soon as the game started, bang, everybody got up and watched the game, which gave us the ability to predict 45 minutes later when half-time came around, bang, the numbers go back up again. 15 minutes later, bang, the numbers come back down again. Japan, when the earthquake and the tsunami hit, we knew about it within seconds. Well, we knew something had happened. We didn't know what. But we saw the traffic from Japan just get wiped out overnight, or not overnight, within seconds. And we checked all of our services, everything was fine. It wasn't us, it was our customers that had no power, no ability to work it. So we can see these events going on in the world. And again, there's a whole bunch of other discussions about the value and the meaning and the impact and the opportunity to deal with some of those data from both a business, a commercial sense, but also from a humanitarian sense as well. There's a lot of interesting things you can do there. That's a way separate discussion. So yeah, you say that this classic capacity that is dedicated and being used for one thing, you put a software fabric around it that allows you to apply it to one thing, but if it's not being used for that one thing, to be able to apply it to other things. Doesn't matter what these things are. They're nebulous, they're undefined, it doesn't matter. You're not being the gatekeeper, you're not dictating what sort of application should run on it, you're just making these things available. So we built EC2, the Elastic Compute Cloud, to be able to use, or the concept was to be able to use this spare capacity. It's actually a very valuable business in its own right. So what did we do? We migrated Amazon.com and all of our other sites to the cloud. We can now get capacity on demand, which is powerful and valuable. We can release capacity when it's not needed, and we can go and sell that on the spot market. So the business model for cloud computing is the same, almost the same as the oil market or any commodity market. You're buying contracts, you're buying guaranteed capacity, and any leftover, any waste is sold on a spot market, and that market will float quite dramatically based on demand. But everything you know from an economics perspective about how commodities markets work is exactly the same thing. And at some point we're going to find that Amazon with its cloud and Facebook with its cloud and Microsoft with its cloud, there'll be arbitrage folks that sit in the middle that will arbitrage capacity. They'll buy lumps of capacity and sell it off to other people, and they'll hold it, and they'll do all of those wacky things that you can do with pork bellies. Or so I'm told. Not quite sure about that. I don't know that much about pork bellies. So look what this gives us. We dynamically adjust our capacity to meet demand. We always lead it a little bit. There's always a bit of buffer because there's a finite amount of time necessary to spin up additional capacity. We're trying to drive that down as well. But we always lead with a little bit of excess capacity. But there's a huge cost saving, as you can see, from not maintaining that straight line to be able to maintain the wiggly line. And then, of course, we have the beautiful Oprah effect. So when Oprah says, go buy 50 Shades of Grey, we can rapidly provision. Now we overshoot because we can see it going up, we look at that trend and we keep on provisioning additional capacity. So once it starts coming down, we don't believe it, we don't trust it. We keep on provisioning a little bit more. It's what the algorithm says to do, and then we start bringing it back down again. So there's a lot of interesting math. This is why Amazon likes math majors, by the way, as well as computer scientists and a whole bunch of other folks, to solve these sort of problems. Because these sort of problems have been solved in the past. AT&T, Bell, Shell Oil, people that deal in large commodities have solved this class of problem in the past. We're looking to solve it, though, not in terms of the time it takes to ship a tanker from one side of the planet full of crude oil. We're looking to basically resolve those sort of problems in milliseconds, in microseconds. And that, of course, itself takes a lot of computing capacity that you have to go and provision. And then, of course, something else has to calculate that, so it all kind of cascades up. So, point being out of all of this is, if you're close to a problem, customers are so unreliable. We love them dearly, and we obsess about them, but they are very unreliable. They'll always tell you what they want within the context of what they have today. They'll look at the fabric of that which exists, and they'll give you a little incremental requirement, a little minor feature improvement. They typically don't help you make those big leaps forward. And also, they're very good about telling you what they need. I need a feature to do this. I'd much rather hear of the problem they're trying to solve or the opportunity they have. Take me back to first principles. Help me write that press release, that working backwards model that we talked about a little earlier on. That's very, very important. But otherwise, apart from that, we love customers. We love you all. But by deeply understanding these problems and taking the customer input, but taking our experience and solving our own problems first and foremost. And there's a large class of problems you can't solve for yourself. But where you have that opportunity to look look within yourself and solve those problems, and figure them out and have people that will critique you internally, very, very honestly, very, very candidly, then it gives you the confidence that you have something that you can go and take externally. We've done that a number of times. Plenty of other companies have done it as well. But it makes it a kind of very fun and exciting, very vibrant, and very, very rapid feedback model. We love all of that. So I think the final thing I would ask you about, or ask certainly the students in the room, but it's a question that's good for anybody, which is, what's your itch? What's your passion? What's the problem that you have to deal with on a regular basis? Because I feel very confident in saying that if you can solve it for yourself, and you do so in a great way, and you're very pleased and very thrilled with it, there's a very, very high likelihood that other people will also get the chance to benefit from it as well.
So I'm just going to say my itch is, let's get Harvey Mudd College better known, better recognized for all the incredibly wonderful things we do. And if Amazon can help with it.
You can sell degrees online if you like.
So let me.
Did you just list us on
And B, this was a wonderful talk. I want to open it up for questions, for other people answering what your itch is. This was just such a wonderful sort of inside look at how Amazon thinks about itself and how it moves forward. So I want to start with applauding Colin for